And now it's time for our prepared speeches. Our first speaker has been speaking since she was 2, but it wasn't until 2007, when she launched her own news service, The Whip, that she discovered she was terrified of public speaking. Delivering her number 4 speech entitled, My Fear of Public Speaking, Kate Davies.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. When I speak publicly, either at a podium, before a group, or on the radio, I tend to choke. And I don't mean that metaphorically. My breath forgets its natural path in through the mouth, down deep into the abdomen, and back up again, and instead takes a short course all up in my throat, crowding the air that I've left aside to speak with. Over time, I've learned that at some point in the first 5 minutes of speaking, I tend to calm down and my breathing restores its natural rhythm. Unfortunately, in my current position, my speaking engagements tend to be short, usually less than 5 minutes. I know part of the solution is relaxation. What I find so ironic is that I have no problem relaxing. I relax in a variety of ways, including hanging out with friends, and talking about the very subjects that I'm asked to speak about publicly. When I'm relaxed, words just seem to flow. I talk with conviction, charisma, and courage, and sound like the person I want to convey in the public arena. But somehow, on stage, I'm haunted by another being. She's timid, apprehensive, and insecure. The obvious solution would be some form of self-hypnosis. If I could take the stage, having convinced myself I'm actually sitting in my favorite cafe and drinking a latte, talking shop with my friends, instead of this fearful place I find myself, the words just might flow. If only it were that easy. Instead, I joined Toastmasters. In Toastmasters, I've learned the great skill of preparation. Unfortunately, I've become obsessed with my notes, and my words still don't flow like I know they're capable of. While I strive to appear off the cuff, I cannot claim to have an eidetic memory, and instead, I meticulously mask myself in preparation and almost always experience the most extreme discomfort imaginable when speaking in public. I'm hoping to use this opportunity, public speaking, to get to the bottom of my public speaking complex. Now, I don't mean to get overly psychoanalytical on you all, and I promise not to summon my inner child into this conversation. But a trip to the depths of my fear, for me, does mean traveling back to the time when I think it might have all began. The first fear that comes to mind, I'll call my fear of not being ready. As a child, I was big for my age. I was already speaking in full sentences by the time I was 2, and because of this, my parents thought that it was appropriate to send me to preschool, although I was a year younger than my 3-year-old counterparts. So after 2 years of preschool, my classmates were ready to go to kindergarten, and my parents thought since preschool is private and kindergarten is free, why not send me along? Unfortunately, the kindergarten wasn't too sure about letting a 4-year-old into the classroom, so they had me over for a couple of tests. I remember these tests well. They were questions like, what sound does a dog make? What sound does a cow make? So although these questions, the answers came really easily, it was really the beginning of having to prove year after year that I was ready and mature enough to go on to the next grade level. Being a year behind age-wise in school created an additional challenge for me. Although I was exceptionally verbal, the same size as my classmates, independent, and ready to kiss the boys far sooner than any of my friends, certain learning skills were definitely delayed. This became apparent in the 3rd grade when we started memorizing our multiplication tables. This was the beginning of my fear of not having the answer. Not knowing the profound effect it would have on me, the teacher created a really colorful timeline on the top of the chalkboard on the far wall in front of the classroom. All of our names were stacked behind 0, which was the imaginary starting line. Our daily tests were timed. I passed the 0s with my friends. The next day, I passed the 1s. But since I was counting on my fingers, I got a little stopped up on the 2. I got faster at that and passed the 2s. But then came the dreadful 3s. Each day was more devastating. As all my classmates were racing towards the 12s, I was grappling with 3 times 9 and a ticking clock. I didn't know I had any fear of public speaking until I started doing it in the last few years. And so since then, I've actually developed an additional fear of shaking uncontrollably and looking nervous. So just as I was finishing writing this speech, I actually came across a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson. The quote read, "Do not be too timid and squeamish about your actions. All life is an experiment. What if they are a little coarse and you may get your coat soiled or torn? What if you do fail and get fairly rolled up in the dirt once or twice? Up again, you shall never be afraid to tumble." So, maybe getting to the bottom of my fear isn't the solution to my public speaking challenge. Maybe it's more important that I just go for it and speak up in spite of my fear. Maybe then I can take what is frightening me if I think too much about it and turn it into something that just might be exhilarating if I let myself enjoy it. Mr. Toastmaster.